All right, so as I said, guys, we're here at a virtual roadshow with students from the University of the West Indies. My name is Irwin Williams. You guys would have heard that before, but just because we're doing a different recording, I thought it made sense to reintroduce myself. This is a Power Hour presentation, one of the regular ones we do at Teleios, meaning we do Power Hour every week, even though for the most part, those recordings tend to be just for us internally to laugh and have a good time talking about. But I thought since we mentioned it in our previous presentation, introducing you just to who Teleios is, it might be fun to see one of the presentations we do here at Teleios. Feel free to raise your hand if you have a question to ask, and I would just allow you to share it as we go on. Make sense? And just so that we could test that out once more, because I love it so much. Guys, let's see hands going up all around the room. How cool that is. I will not get tired of seeing that, guys. Anyway, let's go. So this is Tinker, Tailor, Laugh and Cry. And it talks about what I've come to appreciate is one of the ways I grow as a developer is by tinkering. And sometimes that tinkering leads to something more, and other times it doesn't. There is at times laughter, a lot of joy, and other times there's some crying. So for Teleios Power Hour, my team and I at Teleios here, we were describing some of the options I had for this presentation. And we looked at three things I was playing with at the time. And I thought, guys, let's discuss this. Which of these should I go with? One of the things is a project that I'm calling End Credits, which is something you can do in Teams to show off the end credits at the end of the presentation. Another is based on a book I saw called Press Here, and a third is based on chatbots. It's called More Bots because I've been building chatbots in my spare time for a while. And this one focused on another way to build chatbots speaks to that. Because of how often I've been building chatbots, my team was like, nah, don't do any bots anymore. We've seen enough of that. Do something cool. So we kind of said, try and do end credits. Try and do that one. That should be fun. So just before we go on, Tinker, just to confirm what we mean by Tinker. Earlier maybe improve something, and in this case, the something here more than likely is my understanding of some technology. But broadly, I think the improvement has been happening to my skill, happening to my sense of technology, my sense of what makes sense, what works for various kinds of users, and to do it not too seriously. You know, it's not for a course, it's not for a client, it's largely for my own interest. And I found that even in doing that, it has had a lot of knock-on effects. So first, I want to talk about something called Nurse Carter. Nurse Carter is a chatbot I built about 5 years ago. So some of the people on the call, when I presented this before, would have been, yeah, I've heard of Nurse Carter. Some of my colleagues may have been like, I don't know what that is at all. And so it's a chatbot, and I built it just around the time my first child was born. So I was home on paternity leave, and kind of thought, hey, no, this would be cool, because we had to figure out or remember when we should go back to the doctor to have our child get various shots and just be visited, seen by the nurses and stuff like that. So it was a chatbot I built way back then. And over the years, I built it, one, as a way to kind of learn something called Microsoft Bot Framework at the time. And so if you look at it, and I have a little view of it here, it's still up. It essentially looks like the template that they released, because I wasn't very interested in changing that at the time, and even not much right now. But if it was awake, you could send it messages, and it's a chatbot, so it's meant to reply. And I used it to help me remember what services were available. For various kinds of health facilities. So I could look up a facility via this chatbot. And at the time, I had it deployed to Facebook. So for example, if I put a place in Trinidad called La Joqueta, and this is just a place in Trinidad in case you are not from Trinidad looking at this, and the bot would give me the days and the times for various kinds of various facilities at that health center. So you can see, for example, Tuesdays was child health. So I know, oh, you need to carry the baby to the health center on Tuesday for whatever appointment or whatever. It's not super needed, to be honest, because we're parents, we're supposed to remember that anyway. You're supposed to know that, and you would remember after a period of time. But I just thought I prefer to do this via chatbot than going to the health website and drilling through a bunch of menus if I wanted to find out. So I built it, and it took me a while to build in between diaper duty and getting sleep. So I thought, oh, that's cool. And as we went on, I paid attention to technology, which is bot framework. It's really interesting now that that same chatbot that took me weeks to build involved building a front end, building an API and stuff like that. The chatbot part of things took me a while to figure out and learn and understand. And as it turns out, I can rebuild that much more quickly now. Not because I can write code in a blisteringly fast manner. I wish that was the case. But also because recently, Microsoft released a tool called Bot Framework Composer. And I just want to show it to you really quickly. So I tinkered to produce Nerd's and spend time doing it. But now if I were to use this tool from scratch, I could make a chatbot using a visual interface. So let's call this NC 2021. NC for Nerd's. Using this visual tool, instead of taking weeks and weeks to figure out how to compose various elements of building a chatbot, it lets me off the bat get started and build the elements of this bot. So for example, a chatbot has a thing called, has dialogues, and dialogues may help you get information. So when I showed you a while ago, I clicked on the facilities button, I could have gotten facility information. So here I can do the same thing, but just using a visual interface. You can go ahead and say, ask a question, which in this case might be, what area are you looking for a facility? In my case, I might say, what area interested in, right? And when I get that, I can hold down a field in a property. Let's say right? So when the user answers, I can use that. But beyond that, I can actually go ahead and use the information I get from that request to access a website. I can send a request. And I built this out before, but what I'm showing you is really how straightforward it is to access the services and access the functionality you're seeing here, rather than me having to learn or figure out the code to get this done, because you could do all of this with code, but that's a really spectacular things with these low code platforms today. You don't have to write all the code from scratch to get things done. So I can actually say, make a web request using something called a get method. I know some of you are fairly new to this stuff, but notice I'm not writing a lot of code. I'm just entering properties in a field. And in this case, I would say use dialog.location. Somebody just saved it a while ago. So notice minutes to get this stuff done. When I get my response back, I'll save it in a property called dialog.api response. And from that, I could then use that result in any way I want. So for now, I want to save a property from the result of the call. So I really want to get facility information. So for now, I got the response back. Let's assume it was successful. Normally, you put some things in. Remember we mentioned quality before? Put some things in to make sure the response was successful. But for now, we're just going to make a property, call that property facility, and say it's based on what came back from the API result. You guys following fine? I know it's it's new, you may have never seen the bot framework composer before, may have not thought about chatbots, but the point I'm trying to make here is really easily, this knowledge about pointing and clicking and knowing about dialogues is stuff you can read up about and get familiar with. But this is a far cry from when I first started to do it, where I had to essentially write a bunch of code. And in this case, I can say, send a response based on what I got there on the web. And the response here will be, you asked about a facility. You asked about a location. So I had to know, for example, in this case, what the format of the reply would look like. So this is an API call. And in making the call, it gave me back this response. And from that response, I could use it just to reply to the user. I do need to connect what is called the main dialogue, which is a term in the chatbot world, with that facility. And in this case, I'm going to connect it using a very simple string. So that string would be used as a trigger. I'm going to call that string facility. So notice I mentioned a few minutes to get to this point. Like I said before, it took a much longer time. So if you tell the chatbot facility, it should connect you to a dialogue, which in this case is the get facility dialogue. So I would have shown you a really simple demonstration a while before of the chatbot itself. That's this guy here. And here I'm rebuilding it really quickly. Let me start that up. And let me ask you guys while we're here, while we're waiting for it to start up, have you guys thought to yourself about building something like a chatbot? Anybody here thought about building bots like that at all? Maybe to work with you when you're playing a game or things like that? Or have you actually even used them? If you are typing a response, I can't see. Right, let me pull that up. Yeah, anybody here? So I recently I was ordering pizza and I went to Pizza Hut, and they actually had a chatbot you can access via WhatsApp, which I found is really cool. I see Amitisha talking about Cleverbot EV. What's that? If you're talking Amitisha, you're muted, huh? Jared, I see you saying I want to make one for jokes. Yeah, for sure. That should be fun. Right. Right. So Amitisha, you're saying maybe a bot just to chat general nonsense, which people have done. And so these chatbots are used in a number of places for real these days. For example, in banking, I've seen some banks roll out chatbots. I think FCB, First Citizens, sorry, recently rolled out a chatbot on their website. So this was when I started, as I said some years ago. It took a long time to get to this stage. Now, with the advent of low code and low code platforms, it's much faster. So remember this, the point of this presentation is to talk about tinkering, to talk about playing with something and maybe trying your hand at it. A while back when we were talking, Stephen, you mentioned using your newly found C skills in the context of Arduino. When I was playing with the Arduino as well, was to do something meaningful. But if it didn't work, I'd be okay with the knowledge I got on the way to learning about the thing. which to me is a key part of this tinkering. So while that's starting, because that's taking a while, let's continue with the actual presentation, right? So essentially, I showed you I could rebuild it, maybe not in 10 minutes, maybe that's not fair, but it's very, very quick to get to that point using the bot framework composer. So remember I started this 5 years ago. Now don't hear 5 years ago, like I spent every day of my life working on this thing. It was just 5 weeks, like I said. Build this thing and move on. Maybe every now and again go and add something more to it. Like last year with the COVID information being shared around the place, I thought it would be cool if this bot could share information about COVID. So I added some information like that. That kind of stuff, just put in a little bit of functionality and go on. So last year, there's a group called the Caribbean Developers Group on Facebook, and I think you all should actually join. When you go on Facebook, do you guys even use, anybody here uses Facebook? Let me see the hands. Wow, there are no hands, guys. There you go, there's one hand, there are a few hands, fine. On Facebook, there's a group called Caribbean Developers. We talk about a bunch of stuff related to development. It's nice, it's fun, and there, one of the members of the group said, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to build chatbots," and they wanted the hackathon on mental health, and I was like, "Really?" So I think my chatbot is ready just for this test. Let's go back to it. Let's pull up this emulator. So he said, "Yeah, I'm looking for people to build for this hackathon, to help us deliver this hackathon." Now I had been delivering hackathons for a while via Teleios Code Jam. And I mean, I like the concept, it's very cool, but what grabbed me was when he said, it's a hackathon, focus on health, and he wants chatbots. Well, if he wanted to talk about something else, tinkering, he should have just said so, is what I thought. But anyway, before we go back to that, here's this bot being loaded up in the emulator. And I didn't change anything, so it just says empty mode sample. I could change that easily, but I didn't. But like I said facility, it should take us to that dialogue. What area are you interested in? Guys, what area should I ask about? I see Shimon typing. You can actually say it as well too. That's cool. Someone said Lopino, Port of Spain. I wonder if I'll find for any of those places. Let's try Port of Spain. So it did find the name, so that's really cool. It found the Port of Spain General Hospital, but something happened with services. I wonder what. Let's go back to this dialogue that we made. And I said, yeah, it looks all right. That's not bad. Let's try that again. Code should be okay. I say facility one more time. Let's try Lupino. I didn't find Lupino at all. This is fun. Well, for me, it's funny. For you, might be thinking, this thing, what's going on here? Anywhere else? So we saw Port of Spain, we got the name of Port of Spain General Hospital. How about Arima, guys? Let's go to Arima. Nice. So you asked about Arima. It's called Arima Health Facility. And here are some of the services available there. So this is just the bot we built in a few minutes, right? Not a lot of guardrails around error results and stuff like that, but it's okay. It was just us tinkering and bot from a composer in minutes. So let's keep going. So Shannon asked about this and they wanted to know about chatbots. So of course I stuck both my hands up. I didn't send them that image, guys. I didn't send them down. That's just something on my Facebook I had before, and I thought, let me tell you how excited I was about it. So I hadn't actually used bot framework composer before, but remember we're in this mode of tinker. You've learned this stuff over playing with the technology, and now you can use it. Yeah. So I spent about a month developing a course on how to use chatbots with bot framework composer that I had just met, because over the years I had learned enough about chatbots that I felt this low-code tool I could understand enough to teach someone else about it, which I did. So that's the example of me now tailoring that knowledge And we spent all these weeks and maybe a little bit longer figuring out, tinkering, exploring. I wasn't in a class, it wasn't in a course, and there are places for classes and courses. I don't I don't say, I'm not one of those who say don't need that kind of approach to learning. However, you could learn with your courses in the classes, and you could learn with experimentation and tinkering. And so in that case, I didn't just build the course, but the team who actually builds the bot framework composer, they're available online via GitHub. You guys, anyone here, let me see hands if you know what GitHub is. You've probably even gone on it and used some of the code from there. Yeah, I see a few hands, Stephen and Sadie, Timothy. I see, yeah, so GitHub is a place to store and share code. A lot of open source projects use it. You can keep your code private as well, but it's a really cool place for that. So this particular tool, Bot Framework Compose, is being built out in the open on GitHub. So you can actually go there and say, hey guys, this particular thing, it didn't really work well. Can you guys change it? Or you can even go contribute code. So I contributed a very simple line of code while working on developing this really simple training course for it. So I hope you guys see what I'm saying in terms of how you can engage with tinkering. And that's one of the ways, one of the nice outputs. In tinkering here, I both was able to learn the bot framework in depth, learn about bot framework composer, contribute to the team building it, really easy in an open source environment, and also help with pushing forward a new hackathon. So that's some of the examples of fun for me. So let's move on. Remember I mentioned there were 3 options, and my team was like, don't do bots. I ignored them, I still did a chatbot. Because it's Power Hour, you can kind of do what you want a little bit. But beyond that, we did want to explore how to do that thing we saw. So I saw this guy on Twitter, his name was Scott Hanselman, and he had a really cool demo of something he did with Teams. So if you look at that, that's he has an overlay of what looks like credits, but this is from a meeting in Teams. So of course he titled it meeting. It could have been an email, and it was just hilarious. It's like, this is real bad. So I thought, guys, I want to do that for Power Hour. Not what Scott Hansman did specifically. I didn't want to do that, but I knew the concept of overlaying content in a given a meeting on a video. So essentially what you're seeing here is an example of that, using OBS to bring together different kinds of content. So I thought I could do that. And in fact, last year, I made these agents of Teams, what I call them. They were chatbots, they were video bots, audio bots, just for one of our Power Hour presentations. It's actually online somewhere, on YouTube, something like that. But when I built it, it essentially, part of one of the bots I built interacted with the video stream on Teams. So I didn't build it from scratch. I actually built it using another GitHub repo. So Microsoft has a repo called the Graph Communications API and samples repo. So I used that, one of their samples, and modified the sample to overlay information about, well, actually to send back audio, and it gave me access to the video stream. So I was like, yeah, so that's my tinkering about that with that last year. I don't know how it works. I've never really used that part of Teams. I've not done a lot of work in video and video games and video processing, but I thought, it's there, let's try it, let's check it out. So the sample that I had before, I built last year for a different Power Hour episode, and I wanted to make it work, but I wasn't tinkering frequently. And it took a whole 5 days to figure out how to get the thing to go up and running. This is just to get the code to work. I hadn't done any changes. Just, can this thing work? And as it turns out, it could have, but it took me a long time. And I didn't have a lot of time. Remember, in a pandemic, working from home, I have kids, nobody has time to make this thing work. It eventually got it to work. And to make this demo work, of course, for me, I needed patience. I was very annoyed with my own self. I was annoyed with the process. I was annoyed it took so long after I did it before. And beyond that, I needed to understand particular tools. Something called ngrok. A good question. I'll come back to it, Amitesha. something called ngrok. I needed to create a whole new domain and get an SSL certificate, which is a way to secure the domain, and my machine needed to be up to scratch. Let's come back to this question on stale code. It's like code that it was working for a long time, it worked fine, and then all of a sudden things change around you. You don't realize things change, and all of a sudden your code isn't working anymore. That's what I'm calling stale code. It's not a real thing. But at one point I was like, how this code not working anymore? And I used it last year. But that's sometimes what happens when you're tinkering. Things change around you. You don't pay attention to the changes, and you might find yourself in some problems. So I needed these things. And let me actually talk about what happens, or how this thing is set up, right? So I was supposed to build a bot on my machine, right? And I wanted my bot to talk to Teams because I wanted to get the video stream, right? And this is from the sample from Hubert. So this is what they want you to do. But to talk to Teams, when you talk to Teams, Teams needs to talk back to an actual valid URL. So you need to have a URL set up somewhere online. And for my URL, it needs to point to my bot on my machine. And for that purpose, I'm using that tool, ngrok. So I would get from ngrok a URL, an actual address online. I would map that to this URL here. Then I'll say to Teams via the samples configuration, here is my URL. This URL maps to what ngrok provides, and then the bot is able to operate and provide functionality. So here's how this actually came together in code. Hey, Sadie, I see your hand.
Oh, I thought I was not hearing you for a second. Okay, no questions.
Oh, so you guys aren't hearing audio?
Not me.
Oh, wow. I thought I was sharing audio. One sec, guys. Let me confirm that, right? This is Skype Teams, and sharing that audio. Once you have this information, you configure the application appropriately. You guys heard that one?
Yes, sir.
All right, nice. Let me just restart it then. Then I used Postman to essentially join the meeting. Hi, so I'm just walking you through the Hubot solution and how I wanted to use it, how I actually used it to produce my demo. So first thing is, I said it's essentially pretty simple. It's a web app that exposes a few additional endpoints that allows the uh, Teams media servers to connect to the bot and send streams to it. It runs in the context of Azure Service Fabric, but this uses a local cluster. So I actually have a local cluster running right now with the bot already deployed. So I deployed it there, and let me just talk a bit about setting it up. I won't open the config file because config files tend to have sensitive information, but there are four or five pieces of data there that you need to get. One is the URL of the bot. Two, the media URL, which has to be a URL that has been validated by a certificate. So I had to get a certificate, and I used, I think, Let's Encrypt to get a free certificate attached to a domain name. Once that was done, I had to, because I'm running locally, I'm using ngrok. So set up ngrok to run and connect to these ports via these URLs. Pay attention to this one. I connected essentially this ngrok configuration to my domain so that Skype talks to that public domain, which is backed by a certificate installed on this machine, and there's a Skype Teams, and once you have this information, you configure the application appropriately. Then I used Postman to essentially join the meeting, and once I join the meeting, it gives me the URLs I need to use to make calls, to join calls, or to view logs of the service. Of particular note, pay attention to the screenshot one. That's the one I used eventually. How did I use it? So I made a website on top of the Hubot solution that would grab the images. So essentially the bot would subscribe to the Teams call. So if I pull up the Teams call now, you would see. So hi everyone who's not yet in Power Hour. This bot is signed in. So it's joined. And in the past, you will see me use this to make my video change colors. In this case, I'm using it to grab my stream and push it to this website. And I had overlaid this text, and then I got to the next step, which is, all right, so I can interact with the image. I can take an image, and I can go ahead and put text in it. Because remember, the goal was to create end credits natively in Teams. Put a text in it. What's next? Well, let's take a look more in the presentation and see. So, guys, I hope you were following. I know it was a bit of a technology soup, but here's the thing, right? The point is you're tinkering, trying to figure things out. And I got that demo to work. And as I said, a lot of that demo you can get online. You can go to GitHub, pull that down. It's honestly, it's not for the faint of heart, and it's not for someone who's now starting out. You need to know a bit more about the technologies around it. But the point is you can go do it. It's available online to get started, right? And you would notice there in that demo, I got to the video stream. I was able to grab the stream and write it an image. But that's not the end of it. The point was to get it back to Teams. So I have this goal, but I made up. Nobody told me to go do it. But I had a sense of what could be done. So that's driving that tinkering. Is like, you probably could do X or Y or Z. And in my mind, you probably could send back that image down to Teams and therefore have your end credits appearing over your video in Teams. How Hansman did his was using OBS. He used OBS and some transparency stuff, and it was cool. He had gotten it from another guy, and I liked it. He could do that, but I didn't want to use OBS. I wanted to use the video stream in Teams. So I was excited. So I was like, yo, let me try this. I don't know, I'm new to it. I go to Stack Overflow and I'm like, hey, I need some help, guys. And this meme was perfect for what happened to me. I went over to Stack Overflow. Sorry, for those of you who don't know, if you're building software, building solutions, there are forums you can get help with online. One of them is Stack Overflow. You can go ask about code. You can go ask about solutions, ask about architecture. And so Stack Overflow itself is part of a wider Stack Exchange network. You can go get code reviewed over there. There's a place for programmers to talk about programming. There's a place to talk about leadership. There's all kind of stuff. It's very, very broad. But I would have known about Stack Overflow for the purposes of asking about code for many years. So I was like, I have a code problem. This thing not rendering properly. How do I get it back? So I went to Stack Overflow and asked that question. And essentially I got downvoted, which is like, go from here, but you're asking the wrong question. Which hard, that's like a cough in the belly. It's like, what are you doing here? So when it happened, I mean, I was a little bit sad. I didn't actually cry, but I was a little bit sour. Because, but how you mean? I need help. But what they said is, listen, that question is not appropriate for here. Which is something tough to take on your chest, but it's part of the process. In tinkering, if you can't expect to always get things right. You can't expect to always be on the right path. You might go down the wrong bunny trail and decide you need to go to another bunny trail. Does that make sense, guys? Has that happened to any of us? Has any of us been tinkering before and things just didn't work or expected to work? Yeah, I see those hands. Any of you want to share about a time that happened to you? You were experimenting with something and maybe you blow up something. Maybe you destroyed one of your motors at home. What about you guys? Anything like that happened before? Yes, Stephen, let's hear about it.
Oh, not motors or anything, but I did blow some TNCs before, the little microcontrollers, because I had some, I accidentally shorted some pins because I put it in a metal case upside down, and I forgot to put tape below it to cover it up. So then it just never worked after that.
Wow.
And some bad code resulting in the controllers not working how I want them to work. So you just need to keep going, playing around with it until it does work.
Right.
Such as like pull-up resistors. Sometimes I get it wrong. Maybe it's supposed to be read high or low. So I just play around until it works, and then it works.
Yeah, I get that. So it's funny because I didn't do electrical engineering. Anything I do with the Arduino or things like that, I was kind of very tentative because I don't know which resistor to use. I don't know how much resistance I need for this particular circuit. I do have friends I can ask for it. I mean, at the office here, there are a couple of electrical engineers, and I have a couple of friends outside the office who could help me figure that stuff out. But that kind of experimentation, I think it really helps you. It really helps you to develop the right kind of orientation for this field, because you're not always going to see everything in a properly documented spec. Some stuff you might have to figure out, try things out. Hopefully you don't go to Stack Overflow and get downvoted for your questions. But if it happens, that's okay. Sometimes it happens. I'll tell you, I mean, it's not in this presentation, but I was in the right neck of the woods, to be honest. And eventually I found a question on Stack Overflow that pushed me forward a little bit more. I actually wanted to show you, but it's just not there yet. But it was fun to finally move past that problem, move out of the cry phase into, oh, maybe this thing could actually work. So maybe some other time we could show you that thing working. But that was the cry part of it. So finally, I mentioned 3 projects, right? End credits, some more chatbots, and this thing called Press Here. This is all examples of tinkering contemporarily, like for me right now. And one of the reasons why I actually started Nurse Carter was to get information about the health center, which would have benefited my family. And my wife was like, cool. You know, it wasn't like amazing. She was just like, all right, this is cool. And so that idea of doing cool things for your family is another reason why tinkering for me is a joy. So we went to the library. Any of you guys, anyway, I'm not going to ask. We went to the library, National Library, and saw this book that our children really liked. So it's a really simple book. It has these shapes. It says press this, and then it says press this again. And as you turn the pages, things appear. So it's a nice kind of pretend interactive book, right? So as you do things, it causes other things to happen in the book's world. So I was like, hey, that's cool. Let's do that for real. So that's kind of what this demo. Look up, down. Oh wow. That's good. Turn around. Look up. What's that? Another one. Turn the other way. Now it's red. Turn the other way. Look at the other one. It's gone. Go back to the red one. So, did you guys hear that fine? Was it okay? So that kind of stuff was exciting to me. It's built using some VR, a really engaging and simple VR platform. Right. Another thing I had been tinkering with for a while. I had been playing with the technology, playing with the concept for a while, and so doing it as it related to the book was exciting to me because, of course, my daughter would have been like, "Hey, Daddy, that's vibes." It's a thing called A-frame, and you can use it to build virtual reality experiences. So again, 4 or 5 years of playing with it. I'm not an expert. I'm not trying to be an expert. I'm just, if the opportunity presents itself, I'll check it out. And then the opportunity presented itself. So this is, again, tinkering for a period of time. And then boom, Curry says, hey, anybody know anything about VR? Let's see what you know now. And I decided to join in as a challenger. So I hope you get this sense that it's there, the technology is there to learn and to play with and to discover. It's not just there to work and build working code for clients to pay for. It's there to discover and to explore. So Kariri came up with this VR competition. And I decided now to tailor those A-frame skills to present ocean images. And coming out of that was a solution that we call Explore Tobago Underwater. It was based on, I'm clicking this link, but that's going to take too long. Anyway, it was based on using the images from the Maritime Ocean Collection, which is online, and using that technology I showed before to demonstrate what VR could look like for those sites underwater at Tobago. And we got to the finals of the Kariri competition. Why laugh and cry? Because we got to the finals. We didn't win, but we got to the finals, and that was very cool to me. It was good to see that. Remember, you're tinkering. No one is sending you on this journey. You're just kind of discovering for yourself, and it was good to see that along the journey, the stuff that you discovered can actually work its way into meaningful or beneficial applications or solutions. You can get to the finals of a VR challenge on the basis of simply tinkering with this technology and deciding to tailor it then. It had a really nice turnabout beyond that I'll share to conclude, which is, let me get it up. So let me get this link up quickly. Where did I put it? Yeah, just got. So we didn't win at the Kariri thing, and we felt, well, yeah, we do real good. What happening here? And then this week, so we are still in this week actually. This week, we saw that Microsoft in their Ignite presentation, they demonstrated a technology called Mesh that is a mixed reality solution whose demo utilized underwater researchers to do something very similar to what we had proposed to Kariri. So it was like exciting. It was fun. So we didn't win at the Kariri thing, but that didn't mean we should stop. It just meant just look around some more. There are others who care about this kind of stuff. And if you have some time to check out the Microsoft Ignite presentation, you'd see them talking about underwater exploration. You'll see this demo. And it just gave me that sense of, hey, we were talking about this 2 weeks ago. Not that sense of, did Microsoft copy it? Not that at all. It was just, this is cool. Remember what we said before? And at Teleios, we have this orientation of writing software to run the world. I have this notion that the software we create is world relevant. It's not just tied up to our local community or local environment. And to see this thing at Ignite, it definitely gave me a real sense of joy, a real sense of, hey, that's real cool. That thing they demonstrated is cool, but also what we built was cool. And I was glad to demonstrate building it and talking about the fact that there's a nice relationship between what they envision could happen with VR and what we envision, what I envision can happen with VR as well. Again, all this on the basis of tinkering. So sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, sometimes you have a good time, sometimes you get downvoted on Stack Overflow. It's all part of the course. But in the end, hopefully you learn and you grow as a result, and someone else can learn and grow as a result of your explorations as well. So I think that's it, guys. Any questions to wrap up? Questions or comments? All right, if there are no questions or comments, we need to do that last thing, guys. One more time to end the meeting. Let's see the hands.
So we have a couple questions before
Sure.
Hi, good day. I wanted to ask, in terms of like youth development and youth training, like how willing or open is the company to accepting newly graduates to like train or get experience, or is it that the company prefer them with experience already?
So there are two ways to think about that question, right? I really like the question. So we have hired from time to time people just out of school. One of the things we would have said for many years with Teleios Co-Jam is even though you are in school, you don't need to wait until you're finished school to get certain kinds of really interesting and important experiences. You could participate in hackathons. You can build your own demo applications, especially in our field, in the field of software engineering. You don't really need to wait to discover more than you learned in class. And we actually use that as a bit of a marker. When you come to us fresh out of school, we ask, what did you do with this skill? What else have you done? How have you explored? Maybe how have you tinkered? Now, you don't have to actually have made, there's no need for you to actually have made anything grand or built a product that some customer is using. But part of what we do is we try to understand your passion for the area, your interest in building software, the way you really apply the skill you've learned. Because we think it's possible to do as you learn it, going along the path in school. As one of my colleagues mentioned, at Teleios, we have a real strong appreciation for the need for mentorship. Even if you've had experiences before you came to Teleios, we still believe in mentorship because there's some things that we do at Teleios that some orientations we have, some ways we do things, some platforms we use you may not have been exposed to, and we're willing to mentor. We don't necessarily shy away from fresh graduates, but we do expect that persons who are interested in the software industry, they're paying attention, they're reading, they're exploring, they're digging around. So when they come to us, even if they're just out of school, we can have a conversation that's based on their passion and their explorations, and not just based on what they got in a particular course, what grade they got in a course or other. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And is it okay that I ask for you to give like some insight as to how you all came about the name of your company?
Oh, Teleios Systems?
Yes. Sir.
So that goes all the way back to the founding of Teleios. Teleios is a Greek word meaning mature or perfect. And there are a number of reasons why that's a really good name for a software firm. The one that I think we should focus on for now is that it means, just like our tagline, which is software to run the world, when you say you can write software like that, it means you have a particular inclination and expectation around what you can build in terms of quality solutions that meet customer needs, that are relevant, that are excellent. I hope that helps answer your question.
Yes, it does. One last question before I complete my questions.
Sure.
Are there particular certifications needed to be part of the team, or is it solely based on your skill set and your desire to be part of the team and to learn code and those stuff?
So we typically welcome people with a first degree in one of those engineering fields, maybe computer science or software engineering, computer engineering, that kind of stuff. If you don't have one of those and you've done one of those, there are actual formal boot camps you could do, 6 week, 3 month, or whatever. We do expect that if you want to be an engineer, Teleios, you've done some kind of training, and depending on what that is, maybe you have some experiences as well. You've built some applications or solutions, and once we can have that kind of conversation that involves some training you've done, we'll welcome the talk. You know what I mean?
Okay, so thanks. And is there any particular reason for the company being located in Port of Spain, like in that environment itself, or was that just the only available spot?
So it certainly wasn't the only available spot, but as it relates to where we are in Port of Spain, it's a lot of business still happens in Port of Spain. It's, I think, a byproduct of the founders' goals around where it made sense to be located. We have considered places outside of Port of Spain as well, but you'll also see that during pandemic, things have changed a lot. Coming out of pandemic, things have changed a lot, especially in terms of things like real estate and location-related stuff like that. So it's a question that we, every now and again, every few years or so, we ask, do we still need to be here? And just based on where our clients are, based on how business flows in and around this particular locality, we might stay here, we might move. You know, we're not tied to it in that way.
Okay, so thanks.
Yeah, man.
Right.
I have a question. I know that the company mostly does aspects of software and software integration for other companies. In the future, is there any plans of expansion into hardware development or anything with that regard?
So I won't try to curtail what we do in the future. So the future is open for us. Depending on the client and the kind of strategic engagement, I think the answer could easily be yes. It depends on what we see as our own goals going forward and whether the solution serves the customer's needs. We've kind of grown up into saying we are a software services and solutions company, meaning if the solution demands an aspect of hardware that doesn't exist yet, we're more than willing to be part of that solution, part of building that, either by partnering with someone else or doing it ourselves.
Okay, thanks. That was a nice answer.
Yeah.
I have one other question.
Sure.
In terms of us students, now, well, in our degree and stuff, what advice would you have for us to say, like, what certifications we should look into acquiring, alternative to just the degree of, well, electrical and computer engineering? Are there any particular advice you would give us for us to look into?
That's a really, really broad question. It might be more related to inclination. So we build web software here, we build desktop software here. And in fact, maybe what's throwing me a little bit is the question of certification. So Teleios as a Microsoft partner also has employees who do various kinds of certification exercises. Maybe it's in cloud using Azure, or it's in Office 365 or something like that, right? We even have team members who've done SRE certifications out of Google, or they may do the Amazon, AWS based certifications. All those things could be beneficial, even if you were doing. I mean, when I was coming up, one of the very popular ones involved things like A+ and Network Plus and stuff like that. The learning around those things can be beneficial. As it turns out, especially as it relates to getting a job in the software field, it really does come back to how you've taken what you've learned and use that to build, more than how you've learned. To us, yeah, you could apply for a job at Teleios with a number of certifications, an Azure certification here, and an Amazon there, and a Google there. But we will ask fundamentally, what have you done with that? What have you built? How have you explored? More than even how many of these kinds of certifications you have. Specifically for us, given this what is happening in the world, it seems good to have some security knowledge in your mind as a specific thing. Security as it relates to IT and information security. Knowing about major platforms seems good, but like I said, it depends on what you do with it. And we're also expecting that you have a limited set of time. So we do expect you to have gotten every cert on the planet before you even thought of applying to Teleios. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And what about looking beyond our degree into like masters and so on?
Right.
Do you think it's wise or suitable to continue in the same field of electrical and computer engineering, or should it be that we make our resources broad in terms of, like, for instance, doing a master's in something like project management or something may not be completely related to the aspect of computers, computer systems, but more into like management, project management, or these other masters?
So I think a desire to learn continuously is good. And a master's for me represents an example of continuous learning. It's not the only example. It's one of the examples. But in between that learning, understanding how the real world needs your skill is very important. So I would actually recommend at least taking some time, maybe between your first and second degrees, to get some experience, get some exposure to what the world is asking for and how you can respond to that, get some sense of what it takes to produce something and have really strong feedback about it. A master's is fine. I wouldn't sit here to try to tell you which ones to do, whether it's project management or an MBA or an MSc in computer science or a master's in engineering. We have people with various kinds of certifications here at Teleios. We welcome the knowledge you have, but we don't pretend to say it's the best or the only way to do those kinds of things. I think experience and knowledge, leveraging your skill is really important. And definitely whatever you do in terms of education, it should be informed by how is what I'm doing relevant to the world I'm trying to participate inside of.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah. All right, anybody here going to go out and build a chatbot after today?
I might look into that.
Very cool.
I have another, well, just two questions.
Sure.
As electrical engineer, what all of us in this are doing, we have a upcoming choice to make in our third year, which is our core thematic areas. I know that there are some thematic areas that prefer computers over hardware engineering. So I know it would be that, but like, is there any specific courses that would be looked at more preferably to work at a company like Teleios?
I feel almost no. It's a good question, but I feel almost no. If you, for example, in your thematic areas didn't do any additional software stuff, and you decided to apply at Teleios knowing we're a software company, I would assume it is because you have somehow found a way to get the exposure you need in software in other ways. That makes it make sense. In other words, if you did not study anything to do with software and you apply to work at a software services and solutions company like Teleios, I would be curious as to why. Because you didn't actually do any further training in it, except if you did it on what we call the outside. You didn't do it in your courses, but you built products, you worked with lecturers to build research and software, you built applications to support some kind of initiative or project at your school, then it makes sense. But if you don't study anything in software and you don't do any of those extra projects, then why do you want to work in software? You understand?
Entirely. Also,
so to confirm, sorry to cut you off, we don't mandate or specify what you do while you're in school. If you can be exposed to many areas, many considerations, it'll be very good because it helps to make you a very diverse thinker. If you decided to spend a lot of time doing math, but you also wanted to do software, or you decide to spend some time researching other areas in the university experience altogether. It can help make you a more holistic individual. We do want that you have an appreciation for what it means to have some software development or software engineering skill, which means you have to build, you have to create, but it's not the only thing that you should come with.
So it's almost as if the degree is part of being hired, but what really makes you part of Teleios is your own experience with software and how you use it to curtail your needs.
To explore your needs, definitely, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, man. Do you have any more questions before we wrap up? Right, who's going to build some VR solutions? I don't see any hands for the VR at all. I see a hand, Stephen. Yeah, man, there you go. Nice. And who just wants to write any code they could write? You just want to write code. You just want to just give me code. I don't care. Just give me code to write. All right, very cool. I see those hands. I love seeing I see those hands. It's so hilarious to me. Anyway, guys, if you have no more questions, I really enjoyed talking with you this morning. I think this exploration you saw me describe inside of this Power Hour episode is definitely inside of your grasp. Some of it, like writing a Teams video bot, might be too much, but maybe you can start somewhere else. And from that place, you can build towards whatever direction you want to go in. I see your hand, Caitlin. Do you have a question or a comment?
A comment more so. On behalf of our group,
Sure.
we would like to thank you for taking the time to give us an insight on the day-to-day responsibilities of a Teleios employee. And additionally, we appreciate the advice you've shared with us, and we plan to employ it throughout our journey of becoming engineers. So I just wanted to put that comment out there before you end the session.
Sure, very cool. Thank you very much, Caitlin. All right, and I think that's it. I had a really good time, at least talking with you guys, seeing your hands go up all over the room. And I look forward to talking some more with you, and maybe we could reach out online, meet each other in Caribbean Devs, just have a good time building cool things together. I think it's well within our realm of possibility. And that's it from us here at Teleios.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
All right, cheers, guys.